right, good evening. It is 6:15. We're going to call this workshop session of the Lewisville City Council to order. We do have a quorum. We have microphones up and running, and it picks up every bit of whispered noise. I know, I've been listening in on you people. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to item A, discussion of consent and the regular agenda. We do have, let's see here, building codes and fire updates. We also have, let's see here, Councilmember Cade for the invocation. We have myself with the pledge to the flags. We have our graduation of our Citizens University, so I'm very excited about that one. On the agenda, item D1, public hearing. This is an ordinance. What we got here? This is the data center ordinance to create SUPs. And we're going to have a presentation by Planning Manager Michelle Fernandez on this one. Do we want to, why don't we hold off and then I'll circle back once we get the rest of the agenda, just work through. Item 2, public hearing, ordinance of the Lewisville City Council to special use permit amend communications antenna behind the Walmart on Valley Parkway.
No.
Oh, no.
It's the
legal.
It's over by DACU.
It's over by DACU, that's right, back behind the strip center, that's that way.
Right.
that grass area right there.
Actually, there's a sign on it right now. So, yeah, that's behind DACU and the yogurt place that used to be there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So, questions on that one?
I have just kind of a general question, actually. We were up in somewhere mountainous, and there's a 5G center and a 5G tower, and they've made it look like a tree. Is that something that we could actually do as part of the requirements in council, or is that something we could
Are you
consider?
serious?
Oh, yeah, very cool. It blended in a whole lot better than just a big ugly 5G tower.
I mean, I also just came from the mountains.
Yeah.
I see a lot of those, and I agree. I feel like here, we don't have the same kind of trees here.
No.
So I don't know how that would
We can make it look like
how
a
that would
giant
work.
mesquite.
I mean, I've seen it look like a pine tree or even a palm tree. I'm not sure. We don't really have trees that, we don't have the really tall trees. So
It could be a cactus, though.
I guess if I had to choose between a big ugly white 5G thing or a tree that's not native, I'd probably choose not native tree.
Of course you would.
Yeah. But it's just a general question. We can talk about it maybe at our lunch.
I mean, if the applicant is, I mean, you can have that conversation with the applicant if you want to, and they are willing to do that. I mean, I think that'd be fine to have decorative. I, on a personal note, like I've seen those trees as well, and I feel like with nothing around it and just kind of like this thing sticking out, it may not be the aesthetic you're wanting.
Because it depends on where.
I think
if it's in a parking lot
yeah.
somewhere, maybe not.
Could we do it like the ISR on? Next to the...
All right, the chief's standing alone. We'll on the next item. Thank you.
We can make it look like a giant oil derrick
would be something.
and put our mascot all over it.
I will say that other
Water
cities
tower.
have done decorative where it's more like art related to it. I would say that's a little bit outside of what we're doing right now, but if you want us to look at that.
So that's a future question. That's not this
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Just maybe think about
We
it.
can look at that.
Yeah, it would have been nice to be able to do that on all the 5G antennas that went up all over town, but they
We can't do
they
that.
gutted us on that one. So I'd be curious if they're, because I don't think I've ever seen one in Texas at all.
A 5G antenna?
No, that's been decorated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're up in Banff, so it was,
Yeah.
in the Rockies.
I mean, it might be worth asking the question. All right, where we go? Visitors Forum, consent agenda, approval of minutes. Item 4, economic development agreements between the city and GT&JM Enterprises. That's the former Tierney's, now known as the Main Street Cafe, facade improvement grants.
That was the parking lot too, right?
And the parking lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, definitely the parking lot. Item 5, professional services for the Nature Center. Get that ball rolling. Questions on that?
No, just to clarify, this is part of a bond package that was previously voted on by the voters.
And 24, correct?
I don't believe, where's Stacy?
That was in 14, wasn't
Or
it?
is this the 15?
It is not.
It is not?
The nature center is not part of.
Okay. I take that back.
So the nature center will be using 4B funds and future debt related to 4B funds.
Okay.
And a conglomeration of other funds we're putting together.
Gotcha. Item 6, this one is definitely bond.
This is definitely bond.
This is the bond.
Yeah. And this one is South Keely, West College Street Phase 2 as well, Lake Park Infrastructure, Vista Ridge Amphitheater, Castle Hills Trails. Questions on that one? 7, this is waterworks and sewer system revenue refunding improvement bonds, $42 million. Questions on that? Item 8, appointments to boards, commissions, committees. Council, I want to appreciate all the work that takes. I know that there was a time when this was really easy because nobody applied. And so now that, it's amazing that we have multiple applicants for each seat. So I think that really speaks highly to the quality of government that we have here, the quality of outreach that we're having, and the ability for our residents to get tied in and find ways to give back. So I'm really excited to see that list come up. Any questions on this one? I think we have a motion that's basically been put at everybody's table because it is the longest motion ever.
I'll do it.
You got it? Okay. We thought maybe you would. So, awesome. So item 8, that's good there. Item H, I do not have any reports here from staff. We do have closed session tonight regarding legal issues as well as economic development. Any other questions on the agenda before we move back to item D1?
Can I have just a question about, since we didn't post that we were going to be talking about this item in workshop, and since this one is going to has the attention of the public, can we do it out there as part of the meeting?
Yeah, I was going to offer both options. So I know there were some questions from council members. We can do it all out there. My thought was we could do some in here and then do it again if you wanted to do it out there, if there was a bunch of people out there, but it's up to y'all.
I just feel like people are going to be watching, even if they're not here physically, they may be watching and they're going to be expecting to see it out there. So I'd rather just do it out there.
We're prepared to do that.
Okay.
I'd rather do it out there.
Okay.
That's what we will do. We will move on to workshop item B, building code updates and fire code updates. I've got Fire Marshal Tom Legler and our Assistant City Building Official George Babineau II to give our PowerPoint.
And there's quite a bit of information on here, so I'll ask the gentleman to go relatively quickly through, but if you want a deeper dive on any topics, please stop in as we go.
Hello all. So as I said, I'm George Babineau II and Tom Legler, our fire marshal, and what we're going to talk about today is the building and fire code updates. We've already received our first round of comments from legal, but now we're working on the red lines that they gave us, and so hopefully we'll have this done in the pretty near future to send back to them. So these are the codes that we're going to adopt. The model codes are published on a 3-year cycle by the International Code Council and the National Fire Protection Agency. The North Central Texas Council of Governments publishes amendments in local practices and ordinances. During this time, they actually publish hundreds of actual significant changes, and we're just going to touch on a few of those. Updates to the following chapters. So these are the chapters of the ordinance that we're actually going to be, the building code, the fire code, and then the nuisance for property maintenance, So these are the areas that we're actually going to be addressing with these changes.
So when we come to the fire code, then we'll talk about some of the amendments that we pushed forward in the August 2025 update. which we paused and decided to wait until we came with the 2024 codes, just because the amount of work that was involved. The other issue with some of the stuff that we brought in August 2025, it actually worked its way into the text of the code, so we'll address that as well.
Okay. And these are the different sections that the codes fall in. The majority of the codes are construction codes, but we also have the maintenance code and then the maintenance operational code, which is the fire codes. Model code history. The International Code Council currently produces the model building codes. Prior to that, they had 3 separate organizations. In 1994, the organization combined to create the ICC in a single model building code. The first edition was in 2000, and they released in a 3-year cycle from that point forward. Why do we have model codes? To establish a minimum requirement to safeguard the public safety and general welfare through structural strength, means of egress, stability, adaptation of light, ventilation, energy code, and safety. Low life and property maintenance for fire, safety, and hazard. And we, in addition to that, to provide safety for firefighters and emergency responders during emergency operations. And this wasn't one that this was recently done. It actually was in 2021, but I thought it was still appropriate to mention that a municipality may not adopt a local amendment to the International Building Code or the International Residential Code without having a public hearing. For a city of our size, the municipality shall publish the proposed amendments to the website for a minimum of 21 days prior to the adoption and make reasonable effort to encourage public comments. The municipality shall not implement within 30 days after being adopted. And Texas Senate Bill 1202. And I thought this one was one that was important for us to discuss, is because this has to do with EV chargers and energy battery storage systems. And so what this bill says is that whenever we receive a permit, within 3 days of that permit being received by us, we must issue it. So that means that it puts us on a shot clock, whereas typically turnaround time for this would be 7 to 10 business days. Now we held to actually having to do this within 3 days. Initially, when this came about in September 1st of 2025, we had quite a few calls on it, but as the time has passed, we've had about 130 or so permits that were submitted, and of the 130 or so permits, less than a quarter of them have been third party. So it really, in the beginning, was an issue, but it kind of tails off and it's not much of an issue now. But we still kind of keep in mind of that. As long as they notify us that it's a third party, we'll make sure that we get it out within the 3
George,
days.
I have a question about
Sure.
that. Is there a specific requirement for the qualifications that this third party has to meet?
Yeah, well, it has to, and right here, which I didn't touch on that bullet point, it has to be a third-party licensed engineer, electrical inspector, or master electrician. So it has to be one of those 3 people that can actually do it. And submit to us in that point. And again, notify us that it has been done by a third party. So we have it, saying that you have to at least notify us that that is the case. So we can obviously move it up if need be.
So I have a question about bullet point 3
Sure.
here. So is this saying that if we had somebody go out there and also walk the property and we found discrepancies in what the third party has provided, we still can't deny that?
We can't deny it. We cannot.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Even with safety issues, we cannot deny it.
Cannot deny it.
Well, that's a lot of forethought into that bill.
No, we cannot deny it. We have to still process it. We cannot. One of the things and that's why it was important that I put about the utility provider on this last one. So primarily Texas and New Mexico, they still expect the city to come and look at it, but we've also instructed them that even if that is the case, if it has gone through this process, we pretty much cannot deny this.
Wow. Why do they need to get a permit through us then? They should just go through the state.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So,
Waste of time.
yep.
And then we have, and I mentioned there are hundreds of significant changes, so I just picked a few of them that I thought was appropriate. And then since we're talking about energy storage and things like that, I think the second and probably third ones are one of the ones that are impacted. Because a lot of times, and it's with these Tesla wall battery packs in the garage, that we've been getting people wanting to put more than 1, 2, sometimes 3 of them. And the way it is, a typical one has 13 kilowatts, whereas the maximum now that the code actually says, without having to go into some additional fire protection and things like that, is 20. So essentially saying that you can only have 1 is what that says. And then something else that we hadn't been enforcing because it wasn't a thing was the vehicle impact protection required for garages for the energy storage systems. So now because of that, that's something that we're going to have to start implementing where it wasn't in the 21s, but now it's in the 24s.
What is vehicle impact protection?
Like bollards, things like that. These are just more of the residential amendments. I'll jump over into the to the commercial. And so here's another one. So basically this one, at least 5%, but no fewer than 1 electrical vehicle charging space, if provided, shall be accessible. And I think this is an important one to talk about because even though these are required, if you have them, that does not say that it just has to be for accessible. Anyone can do it. I like to attribute it kind of like in a restroom where even though you have ADA stalls, it's not just for a person that's handicapped. So therefore, as long as it's above the required parking for that site, that we meet our minimum amount of accessible spaces for the site, you can still in fact use that if you're not necessarily an accessible placard person.
So let me make sure I understand that. You would have a site, a parking spot that does not have the blue wheelchair logo and has maybe some hatched out so it's a little wider or whatever, and that would count as accessible.
Well, basically, yeah, yes and no. So it will still have the signage. So in other words, kind of like the example is like what we have over here in City Hall. Although those are required spaces, so in that case, well, those would have to be spaces dedicated for that. It's literally if you go above what the required spaces are. So let's just say you're required to have 2 accessible spaces, but you have 3 of those spaces, and 1 of those 3 spaces are actually ADA. Well, then you can actually use it and not have that placard there.
So the issue for City Hall is because those were already our ADA spaces.
Right.
So we basically tapped into the fact that the infrastructure was already there to be ADA accessible, so that made one of them. They still had to have it because it was one of our minimum requirements. It still had to be marked. But that's not required across the board.
So just because I'm slow, an accessible spot with a charger does not have to have a blue wheelchair on it.
If it's over and above.
So I'm sorry, I'll be jumping, but that's correct. So an EV charging space is different than a handicap parking space.
Okay.
So you have to have
My worry is, my understanding is accessible is the equivalent of a handicap.
So what's accessible is not, it doesn't have to be just dedicated to somebody that has an accessible placard on their vehicle. So anybody can park there, but it has to have the striping and the wider lane. So you can have, so anybody can use any of the EV charger spaces. You don't have to have a dedicated handicap EV charging space.
One has to be accessible.
Yeah, and
So it has to be accessible, but it doesn't have to be dedicated accessible.
I talked to Claire about it. In no world do I want to create an environment where we encourage people to park in a handicap spot.
Right.
That are not handicapped. There is no win there. There is nothing but angst and heartbreak. So as long as we're being able to put people in a situation where they can have an accessible spot for a charger that doesn't have that blue logo on it, then I'm fine. But because as I read this, it makes it sound like the only way at the small end, the only way I can do this is to have a handicap spot with a charger in front of it. And
That's not what it says.
That's not, okay.
Yeah, so being accessible does not mean that it is a dedicated handicap parking spot. It just means to physically meet the needs for people with wheelchairs to get in.
Perfect.
They may have to wait a little bit.
I don't have a problem with waiting. I have a problem with encouraging people to park in a handicap parking spot.
Which is more than just striping though.
Can I throw a wrench in your And the thought process that I just had, because my buddy Deanna Carter, because I'm not a fan of autonomous cars, because, well, from what I said,
I'm sorry, this is not an area for public comment, but if you want to talk about it out in the main room.
yeah,
or
because
you
I
wanna
have
talk
an
to us
idea,
later,
because
we
if
can
we're
do
going to
that.
use Navy veterans
No,
who
we're
can't
good,
drive.
we're good, I'm sorry.
Can we do that?
We can
Okay.
talk later.
Okay.
We're still working on it, you come talk to me after.
Okay, good,
Yeah,
because
this
I just had that
one's
idea. the
Still
other
in
day.
process.
Perfect.
And one other one, and as of before I move on, that's new that we have actually have, and it's gonna have an impact on multifamily construction, and that's shared laundry facilities shall provide accessible washers and dryers. And then until the 2024 codes, well, that was something that we weren't requiring in our complexes or anything like that because it wasn't in the code. And so I thought that was a bullet point to bring up that I thought would be interesting because that's obviously something that we'll be looking forward to and enforcing now. Just more of the commercial code. Tom?
So we're going to start off with some of the definitions that were brought forward during the August of 2025 update. One of them was powered micromobility devices. That definition has stayed the same. It's just actually going in the text of the 24 codes. When we were doing that update, I was just pulling that information out of the 24 to update our standards. But with the adoption of the whole code, it just goes back into the code and it won't be seen as an amendment. The smoking definition is a local amendment, and that is something that still hasn't changed from August of 2025. The key to that is making sure that we had a definition that included the use of hookah pipes to make sure it fits into our smoking ordinance and our hookah lounges. And then just as a reminder, and this is currently in place, that any type of smoking establishment, whether it be a cigar bar or a hookah lounge, is already required to have an SUP. So the smoking definition just builds on that. And then the changes to our smoking ordinance, we changed up some of the wording in the cigar bar just to make it more consistent, and then brought it forward with the hookah lounge, so they are very, very similar. They're required to have at least 15% of sales related to the type of tobacco, whether it be a cigar or a hookah, and it does allow for the consumption of food and beverages, including alcoholic beverages. This is the text of the 2024 powered micromobility, as far as the requirements, basically saying where they can charge, where they can't charge. You can't use a single family residence to charge 25 of these, but you can obviously, as an owner, you can charge us. Yes.
I have a question on that, and I wrote it down in my little notes on 322.1.1.
Okay.
Prohibited locations. How would you enforce that?
It would have to be complaint driven.
It'd be complaint driven, but I know when there's complaints of too many people living in one house, y'all have to be able to verify it, and a complaint doesn't mean probable cause to verify that.
Mm-hmm.
They can all say, so how would you, because you have to go into the property to verify that.
Right. So it is an investigational challenge as far as building that evidence, so it would be something where we would have to monitor.
Like electrical use?
It'd be electrical use. It may be just increased traffic in that area. We don't see a lot of those vehicles on the road anyway. Would it be something like the white and green ones that were out here for a little bit? We would have to see where they're loading and unloading there. If they had a marked vehicle that was used for collection, that would be a clue. So you'd have to build up that whole totality of the circumstances to show that this is potential, and then you would have to go get an admin warrant to enter.
Okay.
So additional information with regard to those battery charging areas where you do have a business that's set up for that charging appropriately. What are the requirements for it? The two biggest things that are benefit to us is number 7 is using a fire alarm system with air aspirating smoke detectors or radiant energy sensing detectors, because that's early response, early detection, and it does require a fire safety plan that has to be approved by the fire marshal's office before they can actually go into business. Electrical vehicle chargers, this is another piece that's moved into the text of the code. It basically says they're required to have an electrical disconnect, and one of the things we're watching is how do we, in an emergency response, manage those disconnects. So we would be using different types.
Question about the disconnects.
Yes.
Can you have a disconnect inside the building with a EPO button on the charger to shut it off?
Or yes, or we could do a shunt trip, using a shunt trip breaker and a Knox power box. that allow, so that way the breaker may be inside, but we have the external access.
I have a question, and I may have missed this. When we're talking about the electrical vehicle chargers, both here and what we were talking about before, we're not requiring people to install these, right? Or these are just the regulations that...
If they are installing them,
if they want to do it.
this is what has to be.
Okay, so it's still voluntary.
Correct.
So there's no, when you go into a development, there's no requirement to install a certain number of chargers per spaces that you have.
Not required to have now.
Are they not requiring to have any of that special blanket that you have to use to put over there? Because I would set in a COG when he was doing the presentation, and it's like, you can try to put this out all day long. It's not going to work unless you have that smother device.
When we had the August 2025 update, we did propose requiring parking garages to have those blankets. The research we're seeing now on the blankets is there's no way to truly test to see if they're effective or not. There's no factory mutual standard or UL listing that says this blanket is compliant and this one is not.
So we basically just have to let them burn out.
The other challenge with those is if you put the blanket on it, it may still burn, and if you lift that blanket up, there's a potential for an explosion. So there's not a consensus on that yet, and we're watching the research weekly as how that changes. If that's something we move forward with in the future, we'll come back and say we need to install these blankets.
On the EV charging, I don't believe we're requiring our Unified Development Code a minimum number of actual installations, but we do require EV ready, if I'm correct, so that there's conduit required in certain uses. I believe multifamily, maybe hotels.
Okay, so they just have to put the underground infrastructure in.
Conduit only, not wire?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think we would put wire in because it could be years and years.
I know from down here it was just conduit.
I don't know the answer, and
But I don't remember if
Richard
that was
would
part
know,
of the
but he's
EV.
not here.
Usually there's 3 options for that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll get you that.
This is all very interesting because there is no putting these out.
Correct.
I mean, there's just not.
And if you do manage to get it out, the second it dries out again, it potentially
Starts back up.
start back up. So.
But these are safe costs.
Local amendment for parking garages. We're cleaning up an issue that popped up in the last edition with the 21s. There was an exception in there for open parking garages that we needed to delete. It did not get deleted in the 21, so we're coming back and deleting that in accordance with our local practice. During the time, there was only one open parking garage that was built, and it was our public safety building, and we did sprinkler it. So we're not seeing those big open parking garages coming in with development. We're seeing the wraparounds, which traditionally are required to have sprinklers anyway. So we're just restoring this back to our original local practice.
And the sprinklers are for what purposes?
Fire control. So the other thing that we brought
In case the electric vehicle charging place catches on fire and it won't put it out anyway?
The other thing with parking garages, if you have seen even regular cars that have caught on fire because of the changes in plastics and materials, with the adoption of 24 codes, it brought in the 2023 sprinkler standard, which actually increased the design requirements for parking garages.
Okay.
So it is pushing more water in through these parking garages than was previous.
I assume this is a dry system?
Yes, dry system.
And so is there a different set of requirements for trying to put an EV station into a parking garage?
So that's coming up later.
Okay.
So we do have requirements, we are proposing requirements as far as where those chargers go.
Okay.
So that's coming up in the future.
I just want apartments.
This section 403 deals with places that deal with lithium metal batteries, lithium-ion batteries, whether they be in a new condition, they're for retail sales, storage, or even work through them. We have a recycling company or a collection company here in town, so it requires a significant amount of fire safety features that are added to it and emergency planning. Minor adjustments to the fire control rooms where we had specifically required a minimum room of 5 foot by 7 foot. We've changed that to make it a minimum 35 square feet. So if they need to make it adjust a little bit better, it gives them a little bit more freedom. The other thing that we did on this was we took out the height requirement of the exterior warm strobe, so that way we can install it higher if it's needed for landscape or sight lines or anything like that. And then additionally on the sprinklers, traditionally on the top floor and the second to highest floor, you can combine into one floor control valve. So if you had to shut it off, you would shut off both those floors. We're proposing that you have one on each floor, so that way we can maintain as much of the building in service as possible if it involved one of those two floors. We're adding some changes to fire watches and impaired systems. One of it is that in a building, we have the authority to post a notice saying that there's a fire protection system that's impaired. Traditionally, what we've seen is in a multifamily, we'll notify maintenance, put them on fire watch, but the occupants have no idea. So this gives us the ability to put signs on the main entrances saying, you have an impaired system, the system is on fire watch. The other piece to that is requiring a third-party company to provide that fire watch if there's a sleeping or dwelling unit, if it's over 3 stories, or when required by the fire marshal. So if it's a multifamily, if it's a hotel, it's going to be required to have a third-party fire watch. We have an occupant notification requirement right now that's in a multi-tenant building where every tenant has to have at least one device so they can activate their emergency response procedures. However, if you have that same building and it's one tenant, we don't have a requirement for anything inside. So we're proposing that anything that's greater than 10,000 square feet, that's a single tenant, has at least one device inside to notify staff that they can activate their emergency procedures. Whether it be in like a shipping and receiving desk, a receptionist desk, or something that's somewhat considered constantly attended. And then there's some cleanup in the language for the fireworks requirements. One of it is changing since the fire marshal's office moved to the fire department. This section never got updated. And then we have to, if we do cease fireworks, we have to comply with Texas Local Government Code, which gives us some significant restrictions on seizing fireworks. So that completes pretty much everything that we brought forward in August. We'll just go over the high-level topics that are impacted by the 2024 update, which includes especially emerging technologies, lithium-ion, existing buildings, and so on. So we have a couple proposed local amendments, and this is going to that parking garage, requiring EV charger locations to either be located on the first floor or on the top floor. And there are distance requirements away from emergency exits and stairwells additionally. Another local amendment we're proposing is to increase the sprinkler threshold for existing strip centers from 3,600 square feet to 5,000 square feet. What we're seeing is we've seen what's happened with retail since COVID. We've seen a lot of places, and I've dealt with a lot of businesses that have come in and wanted to do about 4,000 square feet, but we say you're required to put sprinklers in there, and that kills the deal. So what we're trying to do is increase that from 3,600 to 5,000 square feet on an existing strip center, just to help infill those spaces. Now, if they're required to have sprinklers for any other reason, whether it's occupant load or any type of hazard, they would still have to meet those codes, but this gives us a little bit of flexibility to try to fill some of the existing retail strip centers.
How did the 3,600 square feet come into existence? I'm assuming that's kind of an interesting number.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming there were studies done about safety and efficacy, and that's why we got 3,600 square feet. So I'm trying to square what was probably put forth as a safety issue with a ease of getting people in a retail space issue.
I wasn't here when they adopted that initially, but what I would believe is that one of the thought processes greater than 3,600 square foot is typically larger than a normal residential home, so it becomes a commercial building and increases the amount of fire suppression that's required to it. But I don't know, I wasn't here through the entire adoption process.
It predates me too, and I will say that I remember at the time, the fire marshal at the time had told me we were the most restrictive of all cities.
Fair enough, thank you.
Ever.
Well, certainly not now.
Just to remember that our assistant city manager previously was the fire marshal at one point, and yeah, so I think there was that charge was very important.
Another local amendment that we're proposing is to add NFPA 140, which addresses TV and movie production as well as on-site locations. It gives us the ability to have some sort of safety regulations As we've seen filming in the DFW region increase, it gives us the ability to make sure that we can accommodate those operations safely. And then an additional operational permit that we have, that we're proposing, is for massage establishments, and we're modeling that after Harris County Fire Marshal's office.
What does that do for massage? So what is that? So they come in, they need a permit for massage establishment. Besides getting a little bit of revenue, what does that do for us?
And we're not even proposing on our fee schedule to add revenue to that. It's just a strict requirements of these are the requirements we expect you to have, whether it be your license or a lot of it's going to mirror that, hey, you must comply with the state law, you must comply with our local ordinances, and in our inspection processes. If we have trouble with inspection compliance or anything else, it's something that we can suspend or revoke as needed in order to ensure that we gain compliance.
Thank you.
Yes.
Some of the emerging hazards we're seeing, obviously battery storage. We're not seeing a lot of that large-scale battery storage development coming in here, but just in case it does, we have the code that's in place that's going to play a big part of the fire safety plans. And one of the things the code has identified is technology is changing faster than they can write the code. So they are relying on a lot of large-scale live fire testing, where the manufacturers are subjecting their equipment to live fire tests, and they may burn $1 million or $2 million worth of equipment to prove that it works or doesn't work. And that's where that hazard mitigation analysis comes in, and we're able to grab that and require them to provide it and make sure that it meets the requirements that we feel comfortable with, as well as if we need to push that to a third-party fire protection engineer to evaluate as well. And then powered micro-mobility devices, as we discussed before, where they can be charged, where they can be stored, and the fire protection requirements. And to make sure they're not putting it in the corridor of the multifamily building, and now it's blocking the exit. So it gives us the way to make sure we regulate that. Energy storage systems, whether it be solar panel or those large battery systems, again, looking at reorganized how they're run, expanded the hazard mitigation analysis, adds a failure modes and effect analysis, and then enhanced ventilation suppression requirements, including explosion testing or deflagration panels, which these will primarily impact solar and battery projects that are non-residential, utility scale systems, or commercial installations.
So you said primarily, is it solely or?
So,
It's solely?
yeah.
Okay.
Other changes, including updated requirements for emergency responder communication system. That's a system that our radios rely on as a backbone of the building, because energy conservation code and radio waves don't like each other. So it has the ability for us to boost our signals inside buildings, for not only for us, but for the police as well. Updated provisions for rooftop occupancies, which includes things like exit emergency lighting, occupant notification of the fire alarm system. That building has to be fully sprinklered from that assembly occupancy all the way down to the level of discharge, and other safety aspects with regards to that. Updated requirements for cooking operations in tents, temporary heating permits, and inflatable amusement devices, which are typically going to impact our special events permits. And then temporary membrane structures, which the only one we've had of note recently has been the apparatus bay at the temporary fire station. Other significant changes include requirements and regulations on distilled spirits, specifically rick houses, or stored where they store the barrels. In the past, it was not covered under the fire code. This is the first time they brought that into the fire code. And then all other updates, including the refrigeration systems, such as addressing the issue with the new flammable refrigerants.
Since we have a distillery in town, we can talk about what communications you've had so far.
So I reached out to the owners of Bent Distillery, and they responded to me today basically saying they have no projects in the works right now, and it does not impact them.
Our next steps, finalize the review with legal, publish the proposed amendments to the city's website and take public comments, minimum of 21 days, schedule a public hearing before city council, notify the construction community, and implement the 2024 I codes and 2026 NEC 30 days after.
What do you anticipate the timeline of that being?
It takes, I will say, and no fault to legal, these are, having worked on these are long, arduous codes. I would say 4 to 5 months, probably.
You trailed off there, sorry.
4 to 5 months.
And it was a big question mark, 4 to 5.
I don't know, it's a lot of going back and forth. The other thing, Mayor, I wanted to let you know, just because you had asked the question previously, was about some of the energy code requirements.
Yeah, the IECC on commercial buildings.
Yeah, and Jeremy can talk a little bit about that.
So the question presented to the mayor recently about an issue within the International Energy Conservation Code regarding renewable energy. And admittedly, this was something that caught us off guard. We weren't aware that was in here, but basically what it states that any new building has to either have on-site renewable energy source such as solar panels, or you have to purchase off-site renewable energy through credits through the electrical company. So we researched this. We reached out to the COG subcommittee that oversaw the amendment to the electrical code, and they were kind of caught off guard a little bit by this too. But what they said to me is that they discussed that section within their subcommittee meetings, and they felt like that it probably would not be that big of an issue because most electrical companies out there are already providing some renewable energy. But our opinion after looking at this is that this would be very difficult for us to enforce because we can't verify what the percentage of renewable energy is being used on these properties. So we are proposing to adopt the 2024 edition of the Energy Code. The state is at the 2015 level. We're not allowed to dip below that, right? And so what we're going to recommend is that we just delete that section altogether. It's difficult to understand, for one, it's difficult to enforce, and it's above and beyond what the state requires. So our recommendation, we'll make the changes to the amendment, and we're just going to delete the renewable energy requirements, that whole entire section.
I appreciate you looking into that.
Sure. Yes, sir.
That comports with what I think is fair.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. All right, folks, that's the end of our workshop. We got about 3 or 4 minutes before we start into regular session, so enjoy. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock, and we do have a quorum. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Lewisville City Council. This is our regular session. First up on tonight's agenda, we have the invocation with Councilmember Ronnie Cade.
Join me in prayer. Almighty God, we ask for your wisdom and guidance tonight as tonight's agenda comes before us. Grant us clarity of mind and discernment, and discern truth, integrity of heart, to uphold what is right and sound judgment in every decision that is set before us. May our deliberations be marked with fairness, respect, and sincere commitment to the well-being of all those we serve. Guide this council, Lord, in unity of purpose and in faithful stewardship of our responsibilities. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
All right, if you would please join me in the pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Okay. All right. Next up, I have some graduates to deal with here. Very exciting. There we go. Green light. Awesome. So tonight I have the privilege of recognizing a large group of residents who have spent the time not just sitting on the internet, but actually coming out and learning about their city. And I could not be more proud. This is one of those things that's really eye-opening when you suddenly realize all of the amount of hard work that goes into the massive amounts of convenience we have in our lives. How we are kept safe, how we are kept secure, and how, quite frankly, things are made pretty easy. But also, how do I get engaged with the process? How do I change things? How do I get questions answered? It's a lot more empowering when you know how to do things. And so I'm really, really excited to have these residents who have participated in the latest class of our Citizens University. So in a moment, I'm going to recite the names of our graduates. I'm going to ask you to come on up here. I will shake your hand, and then you're going to walk over here to Jennifer, who you know much better than I do because she helps to run this program, and she and her team do an amazing job. But she's going to hand a certificate, and I'm going to ask you to stand up at the back so that we can take a photo of the entire class, if that's okay. With that being stated, we're going to go ahead and start off, and it's alphabetical by last name, it looks like. So we're going to start off with Rachel Alterman. Welcome. Marion Bulmer. Appreciate you. Deborah Flores. We can still clap. Joyce Fuel. Good to see you. Sheila Glaze. Thank you so much. Bibiana Houghton. Stacy Kazak. Great job. Thank you. Sharon Martinez. Hey, Sharon. Good to see you. Diane McDonald. Pamela McKinney. Wakar Nadeem. Carly Oriana. Got that last name. Carolyn Rice. Henry Stagemeyer. Good job. Thank you. Sarah Stagemeyer. I believe there's a relation in there. Damon Taylor. Stefanis Torres. Give a hand to all these graduates. They put a tremendous amount of time into their city. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. So I do want to let all of the folks who have completed Citizens University, we want to keep you connected and involved in our community. Jennifer Brown, the Director of Communications and Community Engagement, will be reaching out soon to invite you to become a part of our Community Ambassadors program. But again, thank you for being invested in your city. It takes a lot of time, I get it, but it's important. It's critical for the future of this country that people get connected this way. All right. Item D1, public hearing. This is a public hearing, consideration on ordinance of the Lewisville City Council amending Article 2, definitions, Article 7, uses, parking requirements, supplemental use regulations, and certain distance requirements, and Article 8, off-street parking and loading standards of Volume 2 of the Lewisville City Code, known as the Unified Development Code, by adding a new definition of data center to Section 2.2.1, adding data center to Exhibit 7.2-3-4, non-residential zoning districts as a new use in the accessory and warehouse and storage use categories, and allowing such use in certain districts with a special use permit, and adding data center to the parking requirements outlined in Exhibit 8.1.4-1, minimum parking requirement, providing for a savings clause, a repealer, severability, a penalty, and an effective date. Demand for data center facilities has surged over the past few years, driven by market shifts and the rapid expansion of cloud computing and large language model systems. These technologies require significant increases in computing and server capacity. Currently, the Lewisville Unified Development Code does not provide a specific definition for data center. Under the existing code, these facilities are classified as distribution warehouses, making them permitted by right on any property where a distribution warehouse use is allowed. They are also permitted by right use in any existing warehouse within the city. While they share a similar physical footprint, data centers differ significantly from traditional distribution warehouses in their operational demands regarding resource consumption and environmental impact. To address these unique impacts, staff recommends that the special use permit process be utilized as a regulatory tool. Implementing an SUP requirement would allow the city to evaluate on a case-by-case basis the compatibility of new data centers or the redevelopment of existing warehouses into data centers, ensuring that infrastructure capacity and environmental impacts are properly mitigated. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval 5-0, with one member abstaining on May 19th, 2026, and it is recommended that the City Council approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption above. We do have Mr. Vachel Fernandez, AICP and Planning Manager, available. He's got a brief presentation on data centers, so please take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So I have a couple of slides here just to kind of summarize all that you just said. As you mentioned, we're bringing this Unified Development Code amendment to add in the use for data center and require a special use permit. You mentioned earlier that there's a growth in data centers across the country, and so one of the things that we're trying to do as a city is remain responsible, but also be proactive in addressing this. And so currently, right now, as you mentioned, in our city, we do not have a use, we don't have a definition for data centers. And so what they're seen as you mentioned, is as warehouse. And so right now, as you mentioned, they could go wherever a warehouse is permitted by right. And currently, right now, we only have 2 data centers that's in our city, and we don't have any pending applications for any new facility to come in.
Excuse me, can you repeat those numbers again?
We only have 2 data centers currently in the city.
I did want to also add that one of them has been since 2010, if not before. So we have one data center that's been here for a long time. There's another one that is for a bank that has, I think, started in 2024 or 5. I can't remember when it opened, but
25.
Those are the limits we have.
I want to be,
No permits. Waiting.
No permits for any new data center, no.
And the existing data centers that we have, can we, like, what kind of size are those right now? Like, as far as square footage, do we have that information or no?
I don't have the information right here, but can definitely get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to be careful as well, is that there's, both Camrys and 18-wheelers are cars. Their impact on infrastructure are vastly different. So if you have a mobile phone, you use the data center right now. This meeting is using data centers. We're talking high-use infrastructure data centers, right? That's what we're trying to protect against, is data centers that will use a disproportionate share of resources, right?
Yes, sir.
These 2 data centers we're talking about, neither one of these are the high-impact data centers that we're talking about trying to protect against right now, right?
Well, currently, Currently, our data center that we have, we do have one that does use, based on the records that we have, that use a lot of water.
Comparable to the AI data centers that sparked this conversation?
Could you repeat that?
Compared to the AI data centers, which is really what sparked this conversation across the U.S.?
I mean, from the data that we have, the use of water, it varies by data center, and I would like to think some of the data centers, depending on what they're using, require more water and some of them don't, whether it's AI versus non-AI.
I guess what I get into it is, to our knowledge, we don't have AI data centers inside Lewisville, is that right? To our knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Yeah, so most of, the idea here is this is regulating all types of data centers, but it's really having just a pause where council can look at what is the impact, what is truly, like you said, is this going to be a Camry or an 18-wheeler? Yeah. What are we looking at? And show us what utilities you're using, show us what your adjacencies are, those types of things that we're looking at. When you talk about, I think there's national kind of outcry right now that's happening for these AI data centers, which are usually on 100-acre properties. They're very large, vast centers. Lewisville is mostly built out. There's not a lot of space for that, but that doesn't mean that someone doesn't tear down an entire area of industrial in the future. We don't have any plans for that. It's probably unlikely, but we wanted to make sure we were protecting the public, and that's why we're putting that forward to you.
Okay, thank you.
And City Manager, I'm sorry, just a moment. Could you just let us know how long y'all been working on that, since it's been early spring of 2025, actually?
You just told the answer. Yeah, so Councilwoman Cade is correct. Actually, Councilwoman Cade was the first person to kind of sound the alarm of concern about this. She had sent me an article early on saying this seems to be a concern before anyone was really talking about it. We started researching it. We went to various talks about it. I myself went online to research things just to see, is this a legitimate concern in the future? I think at the end, and I think Vashil will touch base on this, is we don't know what technology brings forward in the future. This just allows for us the flexibility to just pause. It doesn't mean that the city is against all data centers. It doesn't mean that existing data centers can't possibly expand in the future. What it does mean is that those developers, data center owners, or proposers are going to need to come before council. We're going to have to hear from the public, get input, and just have that moment to make sure that we have adjacencies, noise, we have utilities we're able to serve this particular use. And you'll see that many new data centers are actually coming with closed systems for recycling of water. We have our 2 data centers. Our oldest one is a larger user of water. Our newer one is a very low user of water comparatively, and that's really because of technology changes.
Okay, so I'll continue. But what we're proposing is, one, to add a use, as I mentioned, have a use, a definition of what a data center is in our use chart, and to address Councilmember Kelly's, this definition would encompass AI as well as any other data center in it, and then also requiring, as we mentioned, a special use permit for that. And so I'll go into what that would look like. Currently, for SUP overall, we do have a checklist of what we require for all SUPs. But looking specifically at data center, we look at site, but as city manager mentioned, that this allows public input when it comes on to any data center that's coming in. It allows us to look at it at a case-by-case basis and get community input on what that look like. But also, this will allow council to add additional conditions to ensure that we're caring for the well-being of our citizen. And again, it removes that by right entitlement that data center will currently have. And these are just language that came specifically from our UDC as it relates to SUP criteria. We look at compatibility of surrounding uses. We look at, is this in agreement with what we have adopted in our comprehensive plan and our long-range plan for those areas? And also looks at, does it conform with the zoning regulation and standards in that area? And again, we talk about public welfare and safety and just general welfare in all. Our checklist, when we get an SUP that comes in, these are things that's on the checklist that staff is looking at. But when we are looking at each of the cases as it relates to SUP. And so I'll jump into another slide of some of the stuff that staff can require before making our recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as to City Council. So here we have some examples, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about what these will look like. Utility impact study is something that we can require. A power availability letter from providers, we can require that as well. Cooling systems and different technology, we can require generator specs. We can require a noise study, and then site plan with screening buffers, things that we already require. And we chose kind of a broad criteria for these. One, to not limit ourselves to technology that today it might be good, but in a year from now might be obsolete. And so we're wanting to make sure that we as a staff in the city have the bandwidth to be able to have a requirement instead of having a specified thing in our ordinance. And again, this also allow council to implement more stipulation in terms of inspection requirement, and then also, as we mentioned, help us give a little bit more control over what these data centers look like in the future. And that's really what I have to share for you. I'm happy to answer any questions or any questions that you all may have.
I have some questions, but I think I'll wait till public comment.
Yeah, I was about to ask, probably best for us to let the public comment and then we can have a discussion.
Yep. So if we're done with the presentation, we'll go ahead and announce that the public hearing is now open. I have public speaking cards for this item, but I have 2 cards against. So just so we understand, what you're speaking on tonight is whether or not council should approve a new designation for data centers that creates a special use permit requirement. So you are either going to be in favor of creating additional regulation to slow or at least make sure that and again, the SUP is a public forum where residents would be coming in to be able to have comment on these facilities as they come to the city. Right now, they don't have that. If it's by right, that means they don't have to come here. If they meet all the criteria, there's no public input, it gets done by right. So if you come to speak tonight and you are against this, you are against us putting in place that process. If you come to speak and you are for this, you are for adding a process that requires public comment and a special use permit. Are we good? Awesome. So I'm going to put up the very first 2 here are folks who do not wish to speak on item D1. The first is Bonnie Chris Foley regarding data centers. They are in opposition to the item. Second is Daniel Drapp, Lewisville resident, also in opposition to the item. Are you in opposition to data centers, or are you in opposition? Okay, okay. So he is in support of adding this process. He's in opposition to an AI data center. So that's why I want to kind of go through this and make sure everybody's on, because it gets a little convoluted. So appreciate y'all. Next up, I have the following folks who do wish to speak, and I'm going to call you by name. If you could state your name and your city of residence for the record. You don't need to give your address. And we'd be happy to hear you speak. Kelsey Drapp. Come on up, Kelsey. Got a microphone right there for you.
So I want to clarify, I am also against data centers, in favor of this.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. I wrote a little something. I want to thank the council for the opportunity to speak before you today. This is the first time my family and I have attended a Lewisville City Council meeting, and I know that that is true for many other citizens in this room. I hope that this underlines the importance and gravity of this decision to my family and many of your constituents. I am a lifelong North Texan. My husband and I purchased our first home in Lewisville in 2019 with the intention to live there until we were too old to do so any longer. We have loved living in Lewisville these last 7 years, but some of the changes we have witnessed make us fearful for the future of our beautiful city. We have watched beautiful green spaces and natural habitats be paved over with concrete parking lots, massive warehouses, and a new high-impact data center on Edmonds Lane, pushing local wildlife, including pest animals, further into our neighborhoods. It is no secret that high-impact data centers consume an egregious amount of water and energy, as well as contributing to noise and light pollution. Large data centers can consume 5 million gallons of water per day and create significant strain on local infrastructure. In many other cities in the country where data centers are more prevalent, the cost to repair the damage is almost always passed on to the taxpayers. I live less than half a mile from the data center on Edmonds. Since this data center became operational, our monthly water and electric bills have more than doubled compared to previous years. I and many of my neighbors fear for our ability to afford these costs if they continue to rise. In this polarizing political climate and time of economic uncertainty, the citizens of Lewisville do not need another reason to be afraid that they will not be able to pay their bills, nor should we have to worry about the quality of our drinking water and the environment our children are growing up in. Thank you for your time this evening. I ask that the council vote in favor of this proposition.
Thank you. Norcia Castellanos. I hope I got that almost right. To the microphone, please. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And just to be clear, I am against AI data centers. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Super.
I misread that. So
No worries. No worries. That's part of why we do this. So I appreciate you having some flexibility with us.
Well, thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak, Mayor, members of the council, and my fellow residents. There are moments in life in every community when the decisions made are measured not in months or years, but in generations. The development and expansion of these data centers thereof are those moments. Years from now, our children, your children, will never remember the agenda item, the engineering reports, or the vote count recorded tonight. They will, however, have to live with the consequences of the choices made by their elected and their residents. The question before us is not any larger than technology itself. It's larger than economics. It's larger than artificial intelligence itself. All across America, communities are beginning to sound the alarm. Neighbors who once welcomed the development are now asking difficult questions about water, infrastructure, and sustainability. City after city is discovering that the demands of this new technology are greater than anyone imagined. Whether every concern proves justified or not, these communities are asking others to learn from their experience rather than repeat it. And for that, we should listen. Not because we fear progress, because wisdom has always come from learning before the cost becomes irreversible. Today, we're asking to make decisions that could shape Lewisville for decades. Infrastructure of this scale is not temporary. That is why the burden of proof must be extraordinarily high. If this project or these projects truly serve the public interest, then it should withstand the highest level of public scrutiny. If the science supports it, show us. If the long-term water studies exist, publish them. If independent experts conclude our resources can sustain this without compromising future generations, let the public see the evidence. Transparency should never be viewed as an obstacle. It is a foundation of public trust. We are asking that everyone remember our first responsibility. It's not corporations, it's not developers, not to short-term economic gains. Our responsibility is to the people in this community. There are families in other communities who are standing where we stand today, wishing, hoping someone had slowed down long enough to ask one more question before the decisions were made permanent. We cannot change their past, but we can choose our future. Let Lewisville become the community that listened, that learned, and that protected its people before asking them to bear an irreversible burden. Because if we are wrong about waiting, we only lose time. But if we are wrong about these data centers and what they represent, and its direct impact on our water, we risk something no city can ever replace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jonathan Vinson, name and city for the record, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jonathan Vinson, 2323 Ross Avenue in Dallas. It's my office address. I'm here tonight representing one of the two data centers companies that owns that existing in the city of Lewisville. That's the Digital Realty facility on 2501 Highway 121. I'm led to understand from conversations with city staff that they have been a good corporate citizen. They add a lot of value to the city. And as was indicated, they've been here for 16 years now. What I'm not here to do is discuss the larger issue of data centers on a nationwide or statewide or even a local basis. I fully recognize I'm a media consumer in a big kind of way, fully understand that they're very controversial right now, that there may be action in the state legislature next year, any number of things. All of that is way beyond the scope of why I'm here tonight. I'm here only to represent Digital Realty and to talk to you about their concerns with this code amendment. And I'm really pretty much agnostic about going forward as it affects new data centers coming in. Not here to represent them. I have one client. I'm very clear about that. So as I say, Digital Realty has been here for about 16 years. I think they're a good corporate citizen. The location where they are sited right now is the TI campus, the TI addition. Personally, I think from a planning standpoint, that's a very appropriate location. It was basically developed as sort of a light industrial type area. The concern that they have, and when I filled out the card, I said I'm here in opposition. But let me clarify that. The concerns that Digital Realty has as an existing user is if this code amendment were to be adopted and it imposes an SUP requirement on all data centers, then at that point, and I've been doing this quite a while, my understanding is they would become what we call legal non-conforming.
Correct.
Right. And so, under your code, just like every city I've ever seen, there are certain consequences to that. And the main consequence would be that if they were to come in the future and want to expand their facility, they would have to go through the SUP process, which, Mr. Mayor, as you correctly pointed out, that's a discretionary public hearing process, fully noticed, P&Z and council, the whole zoning process.
Required, not discretionary.
Correct. Yeah, I'm sorry, let me clarify. What I meant by discretionary is that you all have the discretion to ultimately approve, disapprove, approve with conditions. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's right.
Wasn't clear.
Charged political climate. We want to make sure everything's good.
Yes, sir, absolutely, totally. And I want to be clear as well.
Appreciate you.
And so, you might or might not approve that. You might approve it with conditions. And so that's a concern. The other concern with being a legal non-conforming use is that in the future, let's say they sell the property to someone else, let's say they apply for a loan from a lender, then it's kind of it's not optimal to be legal non-conforming. We've had to explain that a lot in the past to lenders, to purchasers. And so it's just something that, again, it's not exactly a cloud on title from a real estate standpoint, but it's a factor that has to be factored in when you sell or borrow money. All that being said, I do have a couple of constructive suggestions for you, and I sent a letter into the planning department. I don't know if you have a copy of that or not, but it's in the file on this particular code amendment. Those two suggestions are, I know that you recently adopted an SUP requirement for certain industrial uses. And one of the elements of that, when you adopted that, was that anything that had an existing CO or was in for a site plan permit was basically, and I'll use a kind of a layman's term, grandfathered. In other words, it was not deemed to be legal non-conforming after that point. It remained legal conforming, which to me is a big difference. So that's one thing I would offer for your consideration is since there are only two data centers in town, at least those two, maybe at least allow them to be grandfathered, continue their legal conforming status. The other constructive suggestion I have is there's everything from enterprise level data centers to hyperscalers, which I think is what's creating most of the controversy nationwide. So you could establish a square footage threshold below which the SUP requirement would not apply. And, you know, arbitrarily a number of 250,000 square feet, could be less, could be more, but these hyperscalers are really huge, and I think that would catch the ones that would have the most impact on the community. So very respectfully, Digital Realty is happy to be here. We think they're a good corporate citizen, and I appreciate your time and consideration of our points.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jennifer Hensley.
Good evening. Jennifer Hensley.
Name and city.
Yeah, Jennifer Hensley, proud resident of Lewisville, actually here in Old Town. I'm also a teacher within LASD, and my children attend LASD schools. So I'm representing teachers and students and residents to oppose the data centers, but agree with this agenda item. If you see on my card, I actually put X's on. Yeah, I needed more information, and I am a proud resident, I said, and I'm even more proud. Thank you, Councilwoman Cade, for sounding the alarm. This sounds like a great agenda item to protect our precious students and citizens. So, yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike Weston.
Mayor Gilmore, council members, my name is Mike Weston, and I'm a Lewisville resident. I'm here tonight to thank you for agenda item D1. This ordinance is the right move at the right time, closing the by right warehouse loophole and requiring a special use permit for every data center, new construction, or retrofit means our community gets a seat at the table every single time. That matters. Your own planning director has confirmed that Lewisville is positioned for particularly high demand because of our warehouse stock and industrial zoning. Getting ahead of that pressure before the applications arrive is smart governance, and I want to acknowledge it publicly. I also want to acknowledge what's in the staff memo. One of our existing facilities already uses more than 40 million gallons of water per year. That's hundreds of homes worth of water right now under the old rules. The SUP process gives this council the tools to make sure the next facility doesn't repeat that pattern. But here's where I ask you to keep going. An SUP is a process, it's not a standard. It guarantees a hearing and a vote, which is essential, but it doesn't by itself guarantee the outcome. The ordinance defines what a data center is and where it can go. It doesn't yet define what a data center must do, what water limits it must meet, what cooling technology it must use, what noise levels it must respect, and what setbacks it must maintain from homes and schools. Those conditions will be set case by case, SUP by SUP, council by council, and that means the strength of this ordinance depends entirely upon the strength of the council administering it tonight, next year, or 5 years from now. I'm asking to continue the work, add hard performance standards to the code itself, not just individual permits. Mandate independent cumulative impact studies before we're looking at 10 facilities pulling from the same grid and from the same watershed. Set water and power thresholds that trigger automatic escalation. Close the remaining loophole ends now while we have the runway to do it right, before the first SUP application lands at your desk and the pressure to say yes is at its peak. Tonight is the first step. Please make it the foundation, not the finish line. Lewisville can be a runway or a speed bump. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Victoria Morris.
Pardon. Hello, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of City Council, Victoria Morris, 2323 Ross Avenue, Suite 600 in Dallas. I am here tonight on behalf of Wells Fargo, who operates a data center near the southeast intersection of Edmonds Lane and West Round Grove Road. Wells Fargo selected this property for its zoning as a light industrial district and with a vision to pursue and create a purpose-built data center facility. They've designed the project for scalable growth that is actively underway, and the project represents a significant long-term investment in the city of Lewisville and the surrounding community. But to share a little bit more about this long-term investment, I wanted to highlight a few key items. The facility was designed and constructed to industry-leading resiliency standards. That means it has been designed and engineered to withstand severe weather conditions, including EF3 level wind events. And from a sustainability perspective, the facility received LEED Gold certification and incorporates multiple environmental efficiency measures, including high-efficiency cooling system and reduced emissions generator technology that are compliant with the EPA Tier 4 standards. The water usage effectiveness for this site is 0.0, which means that no water is used in the operations. The power usage effectiveness is well within modern enterprise targets, and the site was designed with a multi-phased expansion plan, and Wells Fargo is very excited to bring the project to full fruition. These future phases are integral to the long-term success of the site and were thoughtfully completed and contemplated as part of the original design, the property investment, and the lease structure. The proposed code amendment would significantly limit Wells Fargo's ability to continue its operations of this facility and bring the project to completion. We believe that the light industrial zoning district, which governs this site, is an appropriate zoning classification for data center uses. And like my colleague said, we certainly understand that data centers are a popular topic right now, but as one of 2 data centers in the city, we believe that it is a bit premature and would impose a significant hindrance on an existing facility that is a strong corporate citizen. We would respectfully request that you consider including a provision that would allow existing data centers or those in the permit process to remain and continue in its operations as legal conforming uses opposed to legal non-conforming due to some of the limitations that legal non-conforming status impose upon these projects. So with that, thank you very much, and I'm here for any questions.
Actually, I have a quick question. So thank you for that. You caught my attention when you said that it was basically net zero water use. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that jives with what we're seeing from staff as well? This is net zero water use for this data center?
I don't think they are zero.
I don't think they're not zero for this site, but they're.
So 0 in terms of cooling operations and all of the
Perfect.
necessary infrastructure. Of course, they have restrooms
Sure.
and facilities that
All
provide
the
water,
things that
but-
make data centers a hot topic right now, you're saying you are neutral for that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Just a quick one. Maybe you can speak to this. Maybe this is Wells Fargo doesn't want to let this information out. Is the expectation that this continues to be a co-location facility with CPU-driven stacks, or is this Wells Fargo's intent to turn this into more of a GPU-based data center?
I do not know if I have the answer to that. I believe that they are intending to keep this for their operations as they have to date, and then they have 2 additional phases, one of which is within the existing building and another is for a small expansion of the building.
Okay. And I can speak to that a little bit later on,
Okay.
because I know how your system's built.
Okay.
So I appreciate that.
Are y'all expecting to, I don't exactly know the term of this, but sublease some of this out to other financial institutions in the area?
I do not know if that has been contemplated thus far, but all of the operations would remain under the same standards and quality that exists on site today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Waters?
My name is Julie Waters, and I am your neighbor in Coppell. So I am an attorney, and I have been working on data issues for the last couple of months, traveling all across Texas, mainly in rural West Texas, and learning about what data centers are about. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to commend this city council for being proactive and taking into consideration, first of all, strengthening your ordinances and getting ready for what is basically exploding across the state. We have almost 500 data centers in Texas, and the US has 5,000. I know people are concerned with the AI race in China. China has 500 data centers. So Texas will soon overtake China in the number of data centers that they have. And so you guys are doing the right thing, and I wish other city councils would take this same step. Some things that I would like to point out from what I have heard tonight that are a little bit concerning about the 2 data centers that are already here. So 16-year-old Digital Realty. So they are the first one, and they are older and they are larger. And they are consistently using 40 million gallons of water per year. So my hometown of Crowell, Texas, population 769, out towards Wichita Falls. Jason Hill, a Frontera data center developer, wants to come in and build a hyperscale data center there. $40 billion investment, closed loop. That closed loop data center will use 18 million gallons of water per year if it is passed. So think about that. You have an older one that's using 40 million, while a closed loop one is going to use 18 million gallons of water. And the reason why that is so important is because much of Texas is in a drought. Coppell, stage 1, water restrictions. Lewisville, stage 1, water restrictions. Crowell, my hometown, stage 4. The Panhandle, stage 4. Stage 4 people cannot water their lawns. They can't wash their cars. And once they've used more than 2,000 gallons of water per month, they have to pay more. And I don't want to see Lewisville end up in that same situation. Texas does not have water. So you get to decide, who is that water going to? Your residents or data centers? As for the Wells Fargo data center, the other thing that people don't really talk about when it comes to data centers is the construction and the expansion and water that is needed during those phases. So it's not just about when it's a closed loop once it's done. I'm worried about the water that it will take to construct these new data centers or to expand them. That is the question that you need to be asking Wells Fargo. How much water are you going to use during the construction phase? Because I know that Frontier data center in Abilene, that right now that's being constructed, it uses 2.5 million gallons of water per month just for construction. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. There's a water truck that drives around the campus spraying it down, spraying dust down. So Texas is losing its water rapidly just to the construction of data centers. And I want to really just echo what Mr. Mike Weston said. This is a good start. You are to be commended. So I would keep going from this point. And everything that he brought up, those are the things that you need to have in your books right now to protect Lewisville, to protect its residents, and to protect its water. So thank you so much for taking the lead in DFW.
Thank you. Those are all of the public comments I have for folks who are in the room. We did have digital comments that came from the following folks, and I'm just going to state their name and whether they were supportive or opposed the SUP. Here we go. Henry Beal, support. Jacob Rivas, support. Alejandro Castro, support. Ken Purcell, support. Maurice Fulton, support. Jeremy Batterson, support. Vi Cao Nguyen, support. Megan Jaquette, support. Deborah Bean, support. Bibian Houghton, support. Corinne Ray, support. Julia Peak, support. Amanda Townsend, support. Carly Oriana, support. Ricardo Oriana, support. Brad Martin, oppose. Deepika Sheth, support. Vasanthe Kotha, support. Sheila V, support. Mike Weston, support. And I think we had Deborah Bean twice here. So those are what we got from the digital side of the world. That is what I have for public comment at this time. Council.
Sure. I have a whole host, but I'm just going to go through a couple questions because I'm sure these are going to be repeated on other people's questions as well. But I will come back if I miss anything, or if anybody else doesn't catch some of these. So I do want to make sure, because we talked about expansion a couple of times, and I think this is a legitimate concern. We have a data center out there right now. We have 2. What is a process if somebody wants to expand one of those data centers today? Do they have to come back for an SUP? Is that what would happen under this?
Yes, if this ordinance gets passed, yes, they would have to come back, go through the SUP process.
Okay. And to Councilwoman Cade's question, I don't know if this is what you're applying or not, but if, let's say that they didn't expand, but they sold to somebody else and they wanted to put in a hyper data center in the existing footprint. I realize now they take hundreds of acres. Densification is a real thing in data centers. They get smaller and smaller, require more and more cooling. What would be the process if somebody wanted to sell an existing data center or convert it to a hyper data center? Is there anything we could do about that?
If they were expanding their uses, then they would have to come back for an SUP. If the use is going is similar, that wouldn't trigger it. But if it's going to expand the use of the data center, that would require it.
So what defines use though? Is all chips and silicon and that, it's all computers? Is that use, or is use impact on infrastructure?
Just the use.
Yeah, just the use.
Just the use. So if they went in, they would have to come in to make it. I guess they wouldn't have to do that, right? So they're putting in computers, they're putting in chips. They would be able to put an existing hypercenter, or a new hypercenter in existing footprint.
The SUP is tied to the use. If it's a data center today and it's a data center tomorrow, whether or not you're changing it from one person to another, the use is still allowed. It would remain as non-conforming.
So any change would have to have a SUP?
If you expand the exterior of the building out, or you change the site, it would require an SUP. So for example, Wells Fargo was just talking about wanting to expand within the building footprint. It does not. That's not an expansion of a non-conforming use. It's when the building changes.
That gives me pause. Yeah.
So I had, since we're talking about that, I had a thought on that. Is there a way that, because I know when we're talking about expansion, that's talking about the square footage of the building itself. Could it be potentially, like, we know what the water impacts, what the energy impacts. Really, we're talking about 3 impacts from data centers. We're talking about water, we're talking about energy, and we're talking about noise. So if anything happens within the building footprint that impacts one of the 3 of those things, could we make it a trigger for an SUP in that regard? And I don't know. I know we could easily figure out whether their water consumption is going up. We could probably partner with TNMP to see if their energy consumption is going up, and then obviously the noise, if it's increasing, we're gonna be getting some complaints. So it seems like there's a way to be able to find out what's going on with these centers, with just by the kind of the impacts that we're getting. So is there a way to put something in the SUP that defines that expansion of being increased water, energy use, or noise levels?
So you're saying in regards to not the expansion of the use, but the expansion of intensity of resources?
That's correct, yes.
Currently where it's written now, we don't have that in place to require
Could we
an
add
SUP.
it? Possibly, or could we consider, could we look into what could we do?
I've been asked by our attorney if we're going to go down this road that we need to go into closed session because there's some legal questions around this.
Okay.
So if we want to put a pin in it.
I'm just asking a question of whether or not that could be something that could be considered.
I think we have to I think we'd have to look into it, and we'd want to confer with you first. So
Okay, and if we approve what we've got on the table tonight, it does not include that?
It does not. Now, we could also approve what we have on the table and then come back with something, once we do our full diligence on that.
Okay.
So we want to go, we're going to go into a closed session, consultation with attorney. I can never remember which code that is. 551071, consultation with attorney. Okay, we will be back momentarily. And we're back after these commercial messages. Council, we are still part of our public hearing, so I'll entertain any other questions or comments from City Council.
Well, I think Patrick was only on his first bullet point.
I have 23 more.
Perfect.
So I think a lot of these actually
You're on.
I think a lot of these actually are covered, Mayor. I'm just looking through my question list here real quick. If anybody else has questions, feel free to jump in and buy time. No, nothing. All right.
I've got some comments.
Please take those while I get my head together.
Okay, while you get organized, I'll give my comments. I just wanted to, I wanted to start by saying I do understand the need for data centers, and that there are, it's not just AI, it is, the storage of our banking information and our medical information and all of the, the phone, the pictures I have on my phone, and, the cloud exists somewhere. So I do understand the need, which is exactly why I fully support what we're doing here to try to, really what our job is to manage the impact that it has on the community to meet those needs. And so, again, like I said, we've got three major impacts that I'm most concerned with, and that being the water consumption, the energy consumption, and the noise. I do believe, unless I'm incorrect, that our current noise ordinance would address any noise concerns that would arise from any data center uses. So then we're getting to the water and wastewater projections, or the water usage and energy consumption. So for the water, I just wanted to, can you help me out, Aaron, and let me, so whenever I've talked about whenever we plan for our water or wastewater systems, we do a plan, and we base that plan based off of our uses, our current uses and projected uses. And can you kind of give a little summary about how that works for our light industrial uses and, with our current plans that we have, whether or not data centers were used as part of those projections or not?
Sure. So just a little bit of background. We do master planning for both our water plant, wastewater system, and water system. So the entire aspect of it is planned out. We do population projections, and then we also have assumptions related to non-residential uses or commercial uses like light industrial. So there are assumptions made of water demand per acre, for example, for light industrial. Data centers are not, were not specifically considered. They were considered based on their zoning when those were done. But I will say the water master planning was completed before ChatGPT was a thing. And we have not seen a reason to update that. Our master planning has been adequate to cover that demand for the data centers that we have.
Thank you. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is that there's a couple of reasons, but one of the bigger ones is because I have seen some commentary floating around on social media talking about our current expansion project in process, and that being because of data centers. And what I'm hearing you say is that has absolutely nothing to do. We are not expanding that for the purposes of accommodating data center usage.
Absolutely not. In fact, so the capital projects that, the wastewater plant project that was one of the subject of the comments. Again, wastewater is sewer, not water, so different subject there. But all those capital projects at our water plant and our wastewater plant were planned out before AI even hit the scene. Okay. So, and we're not changing those plans. We don't see a reason to change those plans. Yeah, they have not impacted, that we are not accommodating data centers by that construction in any way.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to clear that up. Can we pull up the presentation that Fashil had? Because was there a slide in there, am I mistaken? There was a slide in there asking if there were any special conditions that we could add as part of the SUP review process. I want to say maybe that was on the second to last slide.
Yeah, so these, as I mentioned, these are some of the things that we could require. Based on our UDC right now, staff can require these additional studies and additional plans as part of the SUP process.
Okay, so these are things that are currently part of the SUP process that we don't necessarily have to request adding into that process specifically to what we're talking tonight?
We can request, some of these are things that we can request to be a part of it.
Okay, so they're not currently part of it, but we could make it part of it?
Yes.
Okay, so, because I actually have put together an SUP before myself with my day job, and I know a lot of times you'll see there is a requirement for a traffic impact analysis based on what your development is and the projected traffic volume that it will generate. I'd like to see something similar in the SUP process here saying, if it is a data center usage that we want, this utility impact study, I'm assuming is just water, or what is would that cover water, wastewater, drainage, or just water?
That would cover all of those.
Okay, and then the power availability letter from the provider would address the energy as well. So I would absolutely love to see that in there as well. Our noise studies, they're not required right now. I'm thinking of lighting. I'm getting lighting and noise confused. Okay.
No, they're not. I don't believe they're required right now. We do photometric studies, but not noise studies.
I'm not sure. With the noise study.
But, if they violate the noise ordinance, they violate the noise ordinance.
Yeah, I feel like the noise ordinance already kind of addresses that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the two biggest things that I would really want to see added into the SUP review process would be that utility impact study and the power availability letter from, I guess it would be TNMP. That would be something that I would love to see added in. I think addresses, like I said, the three biggest concerns that I have with the impact to the community on the data centers. Don't necessarily have an issue with the use of data itself or, what that use is. I just want to make sure that we're making sure that the negative impacts to the community we're adequately addressing, which again, I'm focusing on those three things. And then I just wanted to come back to, I know there was a suggestion that we potentially look at making an exemption for giving a 250,000 square foot, exemption or grandfather based on the current facilities and saying anything under 250 doesn't have to have an SUP. I don't support that at all, just because I'm not quite sure what all can be packed into a facility of that size, especially as technology continues to evolve and get better. What can fit in 250,000 square feet today is a million, or something that could fit in 250 square feet today could fit in 100,000 square feet in a year. So I'm just not really comfortable with that provision, and not quite sure I don't think I'm comfortable with the doing any grandfathering or changing any status from legal non-conforming for our existing data centers either, mostly because I'm concerned about the expansion of those services. Really more, I'm concerned about the ability to expand as much as they want without being able to look at what the water use is, what the energy use is, because then we have no way to determine whether or not we want to take on that burden of that the use of those existing resources. I think that pretty much covers all of my big things. So Patrick, if you're ready, did I buy you enough time?
Yes, thank you for that, Councilwoman.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. So a couple things here. First off, today we're just talking about whether or not an SUP is required. We're not defining everything that would be part of the SUP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, period.
No, Councilmember Green, I think you just mentioned that you wanted to add three items to the SUP.
I was not clear that that was going to be part of the ordinance. So my interpretation of what you were saying is that you want to see this. If we're bringing an SUP, you want these things to be included. And so staff would make sure those things are included. It would be part of a checklist for application.
Right.
But
Okay.
it doesn't mean it's part of the ordinance. But if you want it to be part of ordinance, we usually don't have that level of specificity with our SUPs. And what's the application process? It's usually dealt with.
Okay, if that's not the level of detail we include in the ordinance,
it can
that's
be,
fine.
but it's not.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure
I
that
guess-
those things are covered.
I guess I see why it wouldn't be part of the ordinance, simply because these would be criteria that we would be using to decide whether or not to approve an SUP, right? So, whereas if it's in the ordinance would say, hey, you have to have a utility impact study, but, okay, so you've checked that box. It doesn't mean that you are or are not going to get the SUP. It just means that you did this thing. Now, if we as a body say, hey, we want a utility impact study on all of these as part of our decision-making process in the SUP, then staff could do that without actually building it into the ordinance.
Perfect.
If it can be
What
done
about
without being in the ordinance, okay.
But what about the 250,000 square foot?
That was a request. That's not in the ordinance.
Okay.
That was a request
Okay.
by, I think, somebody here in the public forum.
Awesome.
So you'd be fine if these things were part of the procedure, but they didn't have to be part of the ordinance.
As far as the utility impact study and the letters from the TNMP, yes.
Awesome. Okay, and I'm in support of that as well. I mean, in particular, I'd like to avoid things like you must have this technology in place. Technology doesn't age well. It goes out of fashion very quickly. I'd rather focus on things like you will not use more than this much water. You will not use more than this much whatever resource that is. So I want to be very careful with the SUP process. Make sure we're focusing on outcomes and not on the technology used to generate outcomes. And then how do we monitor for this? So we've got, let's say that we do have a data center comes in, we look at it, okay, it's going to be a friendly data center, it's going to be an email data center, it's going to have a low impact. There's like thousands and thousands of data centers being used today, ones that we're all using right now in this meeting. How do we monitor this? Can we request quarterly reporting on electrical usage, water usage, things like that?
Yeah, those are some of the things that we can put in the SUP as requirements, is to be able to get a service report, whether quarterly or however frequent we'd like to see them. That could be a part of it.
I would also just like to, a little warning, heed. The majority of us up here, we don't govern on social media. And the reason for it is a lot of you, and I'm so glad that you're here and you're part of the process, but what brought y'all so angrily here in the stuff that I read online was misleading information. We had 8 data centers. We were selling out to all these people, and our wastewater stuff was all for projected quiet, data centers that were coming in. And the fact of the matter is that was all false, manipulative, and misleading information that was sent under a page that happens to be named after us, but is not a legitimate page for us. And this city has been working on this for almost 18 months now. And we're citizens here, we're residents here, our families are here. So we're not doing anything to jeopardize y'all, because if we do it to y'all, we're doing it to us. We're not foes, we're friends and we're family. And I just want you to take that home with you tonight, because there were some misconceptions from some that walked into this room that were just totally false. They were misconceptions because and you notice that the person that called the Warriors out to picket, not even here. So I'm done with my preaching on this, and this is an issue that always needs to be looked at. Because we have an SUP today doesn't mean that we can't add to it later in an ordinance. We have two, that's it, just 2 data centers in Lewisville. 0 in the permitting process. And our Prairie Creek wastewater has absolutely 0 to do with any of this. And I applaud you all for coming here and standing up tonight. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Meredith?
I'll just make a comment. I just want to thank staff for putting this together with such due diligence and efficiency. I think everything we put together has really helped tonight in what we've been talking about.
Councilmember Kirkendall? No comment. All right. I'm going to maybe put a little bit of a bow on this. First of all, I want to talk about is how grateful I am that we finally found a topic that brings conservatives and liberals together. I'm impressed to see my rightest of right-wing friends and my greenest of left-wing friends coming here and all agreeing that these AI data centers that are happening are very concerning. And when you see the biggest one in the country permitted for 4 power generators, but it's running 24 in Tennessee, that's a problem. When you see the vast amounts of tax abatements that are required, that's a problem. And I think as residents, you should be a little bit assured there is yet another trip or trigger point, is that if they're asking for that kind of money, that means if we don't give it to them, chances are they can't make the thing pencil. So there's another barrier, I think, that we're not even talking about right now. But I can tell you right now, Lewisville's got a history of, if we do any type of abatement, we make sure that whatever comes back to us as a net positive. We don't throw money out. In fact, our residents, we don't have an economic development fund with sales tax like you hear many other cities do. Our residents many years ago said that sales tax goes to parks and libraries. So that's part of how we do what we do. So we're all about quality of life here in Lewisville for our residents. But I also want to give you some of this information because I worry that, that fear box out there gets people really spun up. And for some reason, people will believe what somebody says that's generated by their AI agent. I firmly believe that somebody took our agenda tonight, dumped it into AI, and said, build me a conspiracy theory. And that's what's going to be happening. You're going to see videos of me when I'm up for re-election talking to you and saying stuff. You're going to see it in this next year because that's what AI can do. That's how easily it can lie. And that's how easy people who like to stir the pot can create these lies that sound reasonable until you just look beneath the surface. If you don't have to lick the spoon, it's really easy to stir the pot. Unfortunately, we sitting up here, we got to lick the spoon. So we're here as your neighbors, as your friends, to help, to get that understanding. And I do want to take a quick moment because what we're talking about in the media and what's got everybody fired up are these AI-based data centers. And what we have in Lewisville, these are not. These are typical what are called co-location facilities. These are what all your family photos are backed up on. You know, when you keep buying that new iPhone because you've run out of storage, well, where is that storage? Well, some of it's on your phone, but most of it's up in the cloud. It's where your work documents are held. It's where the software is that runs your businesses. You know, it's all, you know, software as a service. That's what these things are. And so when you talk about a co-location facility, those buildings, typically 100 to 250,000 square feet, just like we have here in Lewisville. Typically, they run with what are called CPUs, which is the brains like on your desktop computer. Those CPUs, they do good work, but they're not AI. AI uses GPUs. It uses graphic processing units. GPUs are what your gamer kids use. Those big, heavy-duty, you know, $700, they're a lot more than that right now, because that's what processes all the video games. Well, they happen to be really, really good at AI. And so when you try to run an AI data center, you're stuffing those things into the same space that a CPU used to live. Well, they take up about 10 times the power, they weigh about 4 times as much, and they throw off about 10 times the amount of heat. And so what that means is when you have a facility like you currently have, that is a co-location facility, okay, could you convert a small section of it? Possibly. But that'd be like moving part of your home into a senior care center, like a bedroom or two, and saying you're a hospital. It's just not the same thing. And so when you're talking about putting 4,000 pounds in the same footprint that you would have only put 1,000 pounds of equipment, you're talking about reinforcing the floor. You can't put it on a second story. That's one of the comments I heard online. So they'll just make it multiple stories. I've never seen a multi-story data center. They don't do it because the floors have to handle so much weight. When you're talking about water for these types of facilities, okay, I get it. This one uses 40 million gallons. How much does your local golf course use? How much does your local multifamily apartment building use? I can tell you the average golf course is 100 to 150 million gallons a year. I get it, 40 millions is a lot, but there are things we don't even think about that are triple that water use. Now, I come from Arizona. Anything we can do to save water, I'm into. But these systems, these graphic processors require water to cool, water cooling, so air cooling won't do it. Our data centers here in Lewisville, they're air cooled. You would have to completely refit to a water cooling system. So here we've got new floors, new water system, then we've got electricity, 10-fold increase. So we're gonna have to get more power into that thing if the power substation can even handle it at that level. So the last one, the frames, the physical equipment doesn't fit in the typical doorway of a typical co-location facility. You have to widen the doorways. So these buildings would have to be completely renovated, which is why you're not seeing an explosion of co-location facilities turning into AI data centers. They're not ripping out the guts and putting new ones in, because the physical infrastructure is just that difficult to handle, to make that change. So I say that to just give you some comfort, if this concerns you, that they're not going to be refitting. That's why they're building these things out in West wherever, because they know they can get all the water from that area. If they come here, well, we're capped. We've got limits on water. At the same limit that we have for residents, that limit that we're building the water system to is a limit to them too. So if they can't figure out how to get more water, why would they build here? So I want you to understand there are a lot of technical, physical, and economic barriers that you're not going to see one of these big Elon Musk type systems come into Lewisville. We don't have the acreage, we don't have the space, it just doesn't happen. Is it possible we might see a corner of one of our existing ones turn into something like that? Sure, but you know where that might happen first? At the Bolin Center, at the Lewisville ISD administrative system, which has a data center that they might choose to educate some kids on how to do AI. Now, it won't be a big one, but it could be here. So those are the kinds of things that we have to balance as a city council. And we have to deal in data. We have to deal in facts. We can't deal in hyperbole. But I appreciate and I understand it's really easy to get scared out there. So what do you want to take away from this? Number one, your city staff knows what they're doing. They are educated professionals and they bring us the best data they have. current data to make good decisions. Number two, your city council spends hours trying to get ahead of and stay ahead of these types of issues. 18 months, Ronnie Cade, and this happens on all sorts of topics. I'm so proud to have the opportunity to lead this team because they care about the city the same way you do. They are amazing folks. They are up here and they're working all kinds of angles to figure out how to be and stay educated and provide great decisions for a great quality of life. And I'm also very proud of my residents who call, who pick up the phone, who grab an email, who grab a coffee, or maybe get an ice cream and sit down with me or their city council or their city staff and say, hey, educate me on how this works. And I'm most proud of you coming out tonight to express your concerns. That's absolutely critical in a functioning democracy. It's not to yell and scream at somebody over the internet and go, man, I got my dopamine fix. It's to come out here, and yeah, this thing is a little intimidating to get up here and talk. But I'm proud of every one of you that gets up on here. Whether we agree or disagree, I'm proud of every resident that takes the time to either send an email, pick up the phone, or actually come and speak in city council, because it's that important. We are building community here. We're not tearing it down, we're building it up, and I can't thank you enough for that. So I wanted to just give you some background. Maybe that was a little too much pontification, but this is the type of thought process that I've been having to deal with for the last 3.5 weeks. Me personally, and I know everybody up here on this dais is doing the same thing. We are not just winging it, folks. This is serious conversations that we have all the time. So thank you for that. With that, I'm going to need a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you please vote. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Thank you, everyone who came out tonight. Next item, public hearing number 2, consideration of an ordinance of the Lewisville City Council amending ordinance number 0804-25-SUP in order to modify the special use permit granted thereby for a communication antenna over 25 feet in height and a communication support structure on a portion of approximately 2.7980 acres, lot legally described as NEC 1171 and Valley Parkway Edition, lot 3R2B, Block B, Phase 1, located at 1093 West Main Street and Zone General Business District by amending the zoning plan included therein, providing for repeal or severability, a penalty, and effective date as requested by Hemphill LLC, the applicant and operator on behalf of TSCA-224 LTD PS, the property owner, case number 26035 SUP. Hemphill LLC is proposing a 135-foot communication antenna and support structure on a vacant area behind an existing retail shopping center at the northeast corner of West Main Street, FM 1171 and Valley Parkway. A special use permit for the proposed communication antenna and support structure was approved on October 20th, 2025. However, the structure was never constructed. The applicant now wishes to revise the zoning plan by shifting the 3,600 square foot tower compound area more than 10 feet to the west to avoid underground fiber optic cables, which requires approval of an amendment to the original SUP. The proposed antenna and support structure is needed to improve mobile phone signal coverage in the general area. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval 5-0 with one member abstaining on May 19th, 2026, and it is recommended that the City Council approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption above. We do have Vishal Fernandez, our AICP Planning Manager, available for questions, and the public hearing is now open. I do have one comment for item 2, and this is, I'm sorry, 2 comments. I've got a single e-comment from Jacob Rivas, who is in support of the ordinance. And then I have a comment from Chris Patterson, who does wish to speak. Mr. Patterson? Name and city for the record, please.
Chris Patterson, West Monroe, Louisiana, with Falk & Foster representing Hemphill LLC out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I thank you for your time today, and I honestly didn't know to what detail you were going to convey all that information, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your ability to do so. As was stated, this was an approved SUP back in October of 2025. We found some underground utilities that weren't on the original due diligence, and our construction team determined it'd be easier for us to shift the compound 30 feet and the tower itself 16 feet, rather than try and coordinate relocating the utilities. So it's just an amendment to the existing SUP that we're requesting here today, and I'm available for any questions.
Councilor, any questions or comments? I'm hearing none. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Council, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you would please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item E, Visitors Forum. Speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than to individual council members or staff. Speakers should speak clearly and state their name and city of residence prior to beginning their remarks. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes for testimony. Speakers making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, and similar demonstrations will not be permitted. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, City Council is restricted from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Action can only be taken at a future meeting. I do have Mr. Barry Luther here to speak in Visitors Forum. And Mr. Luther, name and city for the record, please, sir.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Barry Luther. I own State 28 Kitchen and Cocktails right across the park, and I also am speaking as a resident who lives on Hatcher, 211 Hatcher, right down the street. First item on from State 28 is a request for additional public restrooms signage in the park. We get quite a number of visitors to our establishment that aren't there for the establishment. They're there purely for the restrooms. It's brand new restrooms that are in the building right there in the corner. They're well known. It's one small little sign. We need some better signage. There's a large dumpster area that kind of blocks the restrooms, so people don't see it. Tuesday nights when we have music in the park, you know, St. Patty's Day, nobody went in there. No one used those restrooms, and so we need to see if we can get some signage in the park so those are actually used for what they were intended for. So that's item one. Second item, as a resident across the street at 118 Hatcher is a residence that does not have electricity, and so therefore they've been running a generator for 4 months, and I've been working with the city staff and we cannot get that addressed. The generator is causing large amounts of noise for our neighbors. Called off the non-emergency police line. They said it's not loud enough, even though all of our residents around can hear them. And after 4 months, I don't know what else to do other than come to this council to at least bring the item up and hopefully can get addressed. So I want to bring a little bit higher visibility to the issue.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item F, consent agenda. All the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and being acted with one motion. There will be no separate issue of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests. For a member of the public to request removal of an item, a speaker card or e-comment must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. Council, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you please vote. Who are we missing? There we go. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. All right, item G6, regular hearing. Consideration to take action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lewisville, Texas, authorizing the issuance of City of Lewisville, Texas General Obligation Improvement Bond Series 2026 in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $14,255,000, awarding the sale thereof, levying a tax and payment thereof, authorizing the execution and delivery of a paying agent registrar agreement, approving the official statement and enacting provisions incident and relating to the subject and purpose of this ordinance. City staff is planning to issue approximately $14.3 million in general obligation improvement bonds this fiscal year. Authority for issuing bonds to be repaid from property taxes must be approved by voters. The authority was granted through the successful passage of the 4 bond propositions that were placed on the May 4th, 2024 ballot. In order to allow flexibility in setting the sale date for the bonds, Hilltop Securities, the city's financial advisor, is recommending the council adopt a parameters ordinance which will allow the city council to authorize the sale of bond obligations at a future date as long as the specific parameters are met. A parameter ordinance has traditionally been done by the city, providing the flexibility needed to ensure the issuance is sold with most practical and economically feasible. Authority granted by the ordinance expires 1 year from the date of approval. Projects planned to be funded through the issuance continue to include work on South Keeley Phase 2, West College Street Phase 2, Lake Park Infrastructure Development, Lake Park Marina, the Vista Ridge Amphitheater, Castle Hills Trail, and costs associated with the issuance of the bonds. It's recommended that the City Council approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption above. Council? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the ordinance.
We're going to fight each other.
Second.
All right, I have a motion. Councilmember Green via the technology. And a second, Councilmember Cade. And council, if you'd please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Very excited to see those projects getting ready. Item 7. Consider and take action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lewisville, Texas, authorizing the issuance and sale of City of Lewisville, Texas waterworks and sewer system revenue refunding and improvement bonds series 2026 in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $42 million, providing for the security for and payment of said bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a paying agent registrar agreement and escrow or deposit agreement, approving the official statement and enacting other provisions relating thereto. City staff is planning to issue $42 million in waterworks and sewer system revenue refunding and improvement bonds this fiscal year. In order to allow flexibility in setting the sale date for the bonds, Hilltop Securities, the city's financial advisor, is recommending the council adopt a parameters ordinance which will allow the city council to authorize the sale of bond obligations at a future date, as long as specific parameters are met. The parameters ordinance has traditionally been done by the city, providing the flexibility needed to ensure the issuance is sold when most practical and economically feasible. Authority granted by the ordinance expires 1 year from the date of approval. Planned projects to be funded through the issuance include additions and extensions to the city's waterworks and sewer system and costs associated with the issuance of the bonds. A portion of the proceeds will also be used to refund the Series 2016 waterworks and sewer system revenue refunding and improvement bonds. It's recommended that the City Council approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption. Council, any comments or motions?
Motion to approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 8, consideration of appointments to various city boards, commissions, and committees. Various terms of office on the city's boards, commissions, and committees are set to expire on June 30th, 2026. The process was initiated at the May 18th, 2026 City Council meeting, and City Council subcommittees were created. The City Council subcommittees will provide their recommendations for appointments to the various boards, commissions, and committees, and the City Council will engage in discussion, consideration, and appointment to the various boards, commissions, and committees. It's recommended that the City Council proceed with the appointments to various city boards, commissions, and committees as set forth in the caption above. Council, I want to thank each of the subcommittees for their work, and more importantly, I want to thank all of the residents who have applied. There was a time back in the dark ages when we did not have enough applicants for all the boards and commissions, and so we had residents that were on 3 and 4 boards apiece. That is no longer the case. In fact, we have kind of a waiting list for being on boards and commissions, so we work really hard to give people the opportunity to serve their city, and I thank you for that. Council, I'll entertain a motion or conversation.
Mayor, I'm going to motion to appoint the following board, commission, committee members to a 2-year term unless otherwise noted.
Second.
I got a list.
I got to read it. First board, Animal Service Advisory Committee, appoint Marion Bulmer to place number 2, reappoint Brittany Polk to place 4, appoint Damon Taylor to place 6. Arts Advisory Board, reappoint Christy Gomez to place number 2, reappoint Hannah Bowen to place number 4, reappoint Jennifer Lindy to place number 6, reappoint Michael Gortz to place number 8. Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, appoint Audra Allen to place 1 for a 1-year term, appoint Pamela Goodwin to place number 2, appoint Andrew McFessel to place number 3 for a 1-year term, appoint Devin Ruiz to place number 4, appoint Deborah Flores to place number 5 for a 1-year term. Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee, appoint Victor Pareda to place number 1 for a 1-year term. Reappoint Will Hawk to place number 2. Appoint Audra Allen to place 4. Appoint Diane McDonald to place number 6. Library Board, reappoint Kay Stevenson to place number 2. Appoint Biabana Houghton to place number 4. Reappoint Francis Laban to place number 6. Old Town Design Review Committee, reappoint Jamie Kosick to place number 2. Reappoint Mark Stelsel to place number 4. Park Board, reappoint Elizabeth Flores to place number 2. Appoint Carly Oriana to place number 4. Appoint John Kohler to place number 6. Reappoint Jim Domer to place number 8. Planning and Zoning Commission, reappoint Joshua Peterson to place number 1. Reappoint Ainsley Stelling to place number 3. Reappoint Karen Locke to place number 5. Reappoint Francisco Elwelly to place number 7. Zoning Board of Adjustment, appoint Don Simmons to alternate place number 2. Appoint Andrew McFessel to place number 2. Reappoint John Deal to place number 4. Lewisville Crime Control and Prevention District Board and Lewisville Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Service District Board. Reappoint Kristen Green to place 1. Appoint Brent Kirkendall to place 2. Reappoint TJ Gilmore to place 4. Reappoint William Meredith to place 6. Reappoint Patrick Kelly to place 7. Tax Reinvestment Zone number 1, appoint Brent Kirkendall to place number 1. Reappoint Patrick Kelly to place 2. Reappoint Kristen Green to place 4. Designate William Meredith to serve as chairman effective January 1, 2027. Tax Reinvestment Zone number 2, appoint Lonnie Tipton to place number 2. Reappoint Patrick Kelly to place number 4. Designate Patrick Kelly to serve as chairman effective October 20th, 2026. Tax Reinvestment Zone number 3, appoint Brent Kirkendall to place number 1. Reappoint Kristen Green to place number 3. Reappoint William Meredith to place number 5. Designate Lonnie Tipton to serve as chairman effective immediately through December 2nd, 2027. Tax Reinvestment Zone number 4, appoint Brent Kirkendall to place number 2. And reappoint Kristen Green to place number 6.
That's the motion.
I second.
There we go. I've got a motion and a second. Council, any comments? If none, vote. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Longest motion of the year was that one. 12. All right, next up, item H, reports. Reports about items of community interest regarding which no action will be taken. I do not have any city council, I do not have any city staff reports. I'm going to start to my right. Councilmember Meredith.
I just wanted to make a comment about the boards and commissions as well. Just might have recognized some of those names. So those that certainly give somewhat of a preference to Citizens University. So thank you to all who were a part of that program. I'm also a byproduct of that program as well. So thank you for doing that.
Councilmember Kirkendall.
Thank you, Mayor. So first off, I want to thank PD and Chief Rollins for going out and having that talk about e-bikes and scooters. That went really, really well. So thank you for that last week sometime. And then if I could get staff, council and mayor, anybody staff interested, we have a young man working on a citizenship in the community badge right there. Yeah, right there. So get a picture when we're all done with the meeting, if that's okay. Just hang out for a minute or two.
He got the right meeting to come to for that one.
That's right, he did. Extreme citizenship in the community. So if you can hang around for a minute, I'd love to get a picture with this young man later on. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Green.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Tipton.
Thank you. As you know, this is Juneteenth weekend, and I would like to thank the city of Lewisville for doing the things that they're doing for this particular occasion, and thank Claire and Shantae for their hard work in getting this done. And I'll just give you a rundown of what's going on this weekend, this week rather. On June 20th, which is Wednesday at 8 p.m., there's a night of stand-up featuring CJ Starr and friends. Then on July the 11th, she saw a need exhibition. That'll be for 2 days, and I'm missing something somewhere. Oh, yeah. On the 18th, which is Thursday, a Juneteenth Poetry Slam, and that would be by James Martis. And then on Friday, June 19th, a Juneteenth celebration, free concert in the Wayne Ferguson Plaza from 7 to 9 p.m. And hopefully you guys can make that this weekend.
Councilmember Cade? All right, we're coming up on America's 250th, so make sure to celebrate with Taylor Swift on Tuesday in the plaza. But coming up next early January, we're going to have our concert and fireworks display. And if you check the library, they've got multiple things going on that are really cool. They've got some quilting, they've got some history with history lectures and whatnot on America's 250th. So lots of fun stuff for the community to go out and get educated. And just have a good time. With that, we do have a closed session tonight, so in accordance with Texas Government Code Subchapter D, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, legal issues related to the proposed development at 1002 Fox Avenue, Lewisville, Texas, 75067, and Section 551.087, economic development, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. We are going to move into closed session.
Mayor, can we get that picture before we go into closed session, please?
We can do the picture.
Thank you.
Take the picture.
I mean, we could just wait for you. All right, as there is no further action to be taken on tonight's agenda, we stand adjourned. 9:53.